Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Straight Talking Leadership with me, Chris Pankowski. In this series of interviews that I call My Journey, I get the opportunity to just have a chat with some really interesting people to learn about their journey to leadership. And the goal here is to share some nuggets of wisdom that you're able to take back and apply to your life in real time. This week, my guest is Michael Germano, and I'm going to read his bio as I give him a quick intro. So, Michael is a proud father, dedicated husband, truth seeker, and wellness enthusiast who is committed to promoting and inspiring others to promote healthy, positive, wellness centered living in the world. Professionally, he's a partner and wealth manager at Stewart Partners Global Advisory, where he founded and runs Key Sage Wealth. He's also a partner and co-founder at Fire and Ice Wellness, a wellness community that is building cold plunge and sauna spas. Michael is a graduate of the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania with honors. And he's got a zeal for investing, mindfulness, learning, exploring, generating creative solutions, and generally having fun. He's been passionate about wellness and investing since childhood. And professionally, he's served the world as a financial guru for the past 20 years. Michael is also a meditation coach, former personal trainer, bodybuilder, and power lifter, and he really enjoys sensory deprivation. He's a certified financial planner and a chartered financial consultant. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris.
So, one of the things that I'd like to do before we really get into the leadership conversation is a quick warm up that I call the Mad Minute. Basically, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. They have nothing to do with leadership. It's all about just getting us warmed up and getting into a groove. Ready for the Mad Minute?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So, question number one for you. Who would win in a fight, a shark or an alligator?
Well, it depends on the size, but for the sake of making a choice, I'll go with the alligator.
Two apex predators. So I think I'd go with the alligator too. They've got arms. Question number two. You have the opportunity to travel back in time and spend 1 hour having a conversation with any one person. Who do you go back in time and have a conversation with?
It's a tough one, Chris. I mean, there's so many people.
I know.
For some reason, I don't know, but for some reason, this morning or this afternoon, I'm thinking about Benjamin Franklin. Maybe it's because of our pen connection.
Yeah. You know, when I was asked that question, he was the first person that came to mind. Ben Franklin's always been my favorite founding father. And I don't know if you remember, just as we were like wrapping up our time at Wharton, I had a software company and we had an office in Old City that overlooked where Ben Franklin flew his kite. And like, I've always just gotten so much inspiration from Ben Franklin. In fact, my second son is named Ben after Ben Franklin. So we're on the same page there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what a dynamic, talk about well-rounded person, right? Polymath that did all these amazing things. So yeah, would be terrific to get to speak to Ben in another life.
For sure. Yeah, think about all the contributions he's made to life in general. I think he's had such an impact, not only on this country, but on the world. But yeah, he would be a fascinating guy to go back and talk to. So, Ben Franklin was a leader in his own right in so many ways. So that's a nice dovetail into today's conversation about your leadership journey. Let's kick it off with, what was your first experience leading others and how did that go for you?
Yeah, it's fascinating, Chris, because I think back for me that the first one was a very early one. My mom was sick when I was young, so literally around the age of 4, I was called to be a leader to my younger brother and sister. So that was definitely my first, perhaps most important leadership experience, and it carried with me. And it does to this day, but it carried with me, throughout my upbringing and childhood into adulthood. So that was powerful, and it was, it was like a roller coaster, right? Like on one hand, it was inspiring and heartfelt and terrific to be called into this important role and forced to really develop a lot of skills much earlier than anyone else I knew.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, it was challenging, right? Because I took on this role of brother acting like a parent, but yet still wanting to be a brother. So it was complex, and in many ways it formed who I am today.
It's it's so funny how those early experiences make such a lasting impact on our lives. Um, I often think back about like where my passion for leadership came from, and it was probably when I was 11 or 12 in the Boy Scouts and got my first like taste of what's it mean to lead other people, and that has really carried with me, in a similar way throughout my entire life. So, yeah, those early experiences, being put in those situations, um, can either test your metal and you come out stronger on the other side, or some people don't. And but I'm happy that it was positive for you and it set you up in that direction.
Yeah, yeah, and related to the Boy Scouts, it's a program that I went through. I'm an Eagle Scout, and it's a program that I support, and uh, I can't think of a better leadership program for young children. So yeah, I'd love to see more fire catch on to the movement, right? It seems like it's been drowned out over the last couple decades.
Yeah,
Talk about an opportunity to learn all of these amazing life skills, including leadership. It's terrific.
yeah, definitely foundational for me from a leadership standpoint. Um, who, as you think back over your career, and you and I have known each other for a really long time. You've had a pretty awesome career. But from a leadership standpoint, who has really inspired you the most?
The first two people that come to mind, and there are many, but the first two that come up are my grandfather and my father, who were both very active in the Boy Scout and the local community. And they always instilled some really powerful values, power of, or the importance of balance, right, between work life, family life, professional and personal development life, the importance of respect, all of the tenets of the Boy Scout code, right, the
Mhm.
law, I should say. So yeah, I don't know how much more you want me to talk about it, but it was definitely my dad and grandfather.
Would you say that even to this day, the things that you learned from your dad and your grandfather, are they put into place like on a regular basis as you're leading people in your organization?
Yeah, not only in just leading professionally, but and who I am and how I operate in the world. And then I guess if I were to add another person, I would add the managing partner at the life insurance and financial planning company that I used to work with, Phil Bender. Phil was, he took leadership to a whole nother level and really showed me about the opportunities and, uh, opened my eyes to a whole nother world in terms of masterminds and some great books and resources and power of goal setting and relationships. Like he just elevated it. And it's fascinating because I haven't shared that with him and I haven't spoken to him in, a long time. They're over 10 years, but it makes me think of reaching out to him because I appreciate all that I learned from him, and I think this is a good opportunity to kind of reflect on that and maybe have some follow up afterwards.
Yeah, I think it's funny how sometimes someone asks us a question and we think of something in the past that it's like, man, I haven't spoken to that person in a while, but they've left such an indelible mark on me, and you rekindle those relationships. It happens more often than I realize, and I'm like, man, I really should like reach out to so and so. But yeah, I think as you go through life, there are people that touch you at different points in life and they leave marks, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, but people have an influence on who you become along the way. It's funny too that you say about when you were talking about your dad and your grandfather, that it's not just leadership in business, but it's leadership in life. I often talk about the fact that if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. And the way that you show up in life, whether it's as a father, as a member of the community, in the business sense, those things all tie together. Um, I know for me, as a father of three teenage sons, it's something that I'm constantly trying to, demonstrate in the way that I act, the things that I say, to try to kind of set that standard for them as well. And I've been doing that ever since they were little. And now, as my kids are getting older, seeing that stuff start to come to fruition is like such a reward. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and to that point, Chris, a tenet that I live by is everything, everything, everything. Right, the way I do one thing in one, you know, aspect of my life is how I do it in every aspect of my life, and especially as a dad, I'm super conscious and aware of how they're looking to me as a role model and as an influence on everything I do. So, now that I have these heightened, lenses on me all the time, it's really pulled my leadership and life, for that matter, into a much richer, fuller, complete opportunity. And in regards to leadership, I guess maybe to advance that, what I find is, I feel like the greater the challenge or opportunity that I'm called upon requires and kind of pulls me to develop these skills that maybe are innate or maybe could benefit from being upgraded.
Hmm.
And I think as a dad, there's just perhaps no greater opportunity to consistently be leading and growing.
You're you're so right. And I have a similar outlook, and I'll say often, show me the way someone does one thing, and I'll tell you how they're going to do other things. Because whether we believe that or not in the way that you do, and it's part of your mantra, it's true. It's human behavior. Um, like my dad's in construction, and I would often look at some of the guys he works with, and I'd see how they keep their trucks. And if their truck on the inside was full of like burger wrappers and trash and stuff like that, I can guarantee that their area on the job site also looked like trash. And there's probably a really good chance that at home it looked like trash too. So whether you're conscious about it or not, it's an absolute truth. The way that you do one thing reflects on the way that you do other things. So, but I love that that's part of the way that you approach life because it's purposeful. Um, let's flip to a different story. Is there a time that you've had a failure in leadership? And if so, what was any lessons learned from it?
There have been many missteps, right? And my experiences in life are that the most challenging times have resulted in the greatest growth and eventual outcomes. Um, I'm just trying to think of one that might be helpful to reflect upon from a leadership perspective. I guess it's interesting having this conversation and see what pops up. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure. One that I think is notable is that I played high school football. I played football since I was a kid, and uh, around my junior year of high school, I made a decision that I was going to quit the football team, and it was definitely was purposeful. Right, I had my reasons why, and I have no regrets. But I think about it to this day. I think about, all right, what was my role on the team? Not just not just being on the field, but being a supportive leader, teammate, uh, you know, pushing people around in practice, right? Really helping people to grow, and by leaving, right? Again, I had some great reasons why I left, but there is a part of me that wonders, how things may have been different had I stuck around. Not just for me, but for the team. How would that have affected my brother, who continued to play after I left? How that affected, the school and the community. So, I'm not sure if that goes to the question specifically, but for me, I think it's fascinating to think about these opportunities where leadership maybe has been maybe where one has kind of cut out of their leadership roles and responsibility, and then maybe maybe tangentially also makes me think of the it makes me think about abdicating leadership, right? Like, how often is it that we see a leader abdicates his or her responsibility, and
Mhm.
and the complexities and complications when that happens.
Yeah, it's leadership is not easy. Um, and we often look back on the decisions that we made and wonder what could have been, what should have been. And, I find myself reflecting about that kind of stuff all the time. Um, and there are always so many different factors that play into the decisions that we make. But, it's so do you think that if you had continued playing football, would you have still gone to Penn and maybe played on Penn's team? Would that have changed the trajectory of your life? I mean, you've always been into like finance, so would that have done something differently?
Yeah, it's tough to say, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's just this myriad of of developments that happen based upon the choices we make. So tough to say, right? Maybe I would have played at Penn, or maybe I would have played lightweight football at Penn, or maybe I would not have gone to Penn, right? Maybe I would have gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating, and I wonder too how that, if I were to have stuck around, how that may have affected other decisions, not just during that time of life, but you know, into the future over time, and then not just for me, but how it could have impacted other people on the team, in the school, in my family, in the community, right? Like there was it's interesting because on one hand there were a lot of people that supported my decision, or at least claim that they did,
Hmm.
and then there are other people that didn't like the decision, and none of them were right or wrong, right? Everyone has their reasons, and I guess they were both right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
Both camps. So, but I think it's fascinating just to kind of reflect upon it, and I think it's also fascinating to just think about decision making and leadership decision making in general, right? Because oftentimes, as the Monday morning quarterback or as the consultant or whatever role we're taking in assessing one's decision making, oftentimes we're viewing it through a very narrow lens. And if we include a more comprehensive lens that looks at a more comprehensive view, I think I think the richness of the conversation and the analysis would be enhanced.
It's funny that you bring that up, because one of the things that happens with leaders is they can often be criticized for the decisions that they make. And people don't understand a lot of times that a big part of leadership is making decisions. Like, we have tons of decisions that have to be made on a regular basis, and not every decision is going to sit well with everybody, right? You can't make everybody happy, but it's up to us to make those decisions, because otherwise you're stuck and nothing is happening. So, it's better to make that decision and kind of look back and say, I may have screwed up, I may not have, but the bottom line is the deciding is really where the leadership comes in. And, people get into that analysis paralysis. And then next thing you know, 6 months later, they're still in the same spot. And to me, that signifies a lack of leadership. But yeah, we get Monday morning quarterbacked all the time because someone didn't like a decision we made. And a lot of times I'm like, well, what was your decision? Did you step up? Like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating, right? Like how often is it the people in the stands, not the people on the court, who are so vocal and so like, confident that their analysis and opinion is the right way.
Yep.
And I look and I'm like, what is your perspective? Like you're not on the court, you had no influence in a particular outcome, and you're just grandstanding with no skin in the game. So yeah, indecisiveness is one of the biggest obstacles to success.
I 100% agree.
And Chris, I think it's also helpful to know too is I find it fascinating. A lot of times people are focused on the outcome and not the analysis or the calculation, right? Like you take there's a great book that I think people can benefit from around their decision making, called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, who
Okay.
is who is a professional poker player, and she looks at everything as an opportunity cost, right? There's an opportunity cost to do this. There are odds and probabilities, and oftentimes, whether it's a football game or a sports game or it's business decision. A lot of times people look at the outcome and they say, oh, well, he went for it and they didn't score the touchdown. Well, yeah, maybe, but if they ran that play 100 times and 70% of the time it would have been successful, it was especially a great decision. Even if the outcome wasn't necessarily the one that we all wanted, right?
That's
But
right.
it made sense given the statistics and the probability and the and all of the circumstances. But I feel like oftentimes people are just looking at the outcome and they're not looking at the uh, the data that influence the outcome. And I think the best leaders are more concerned about the analysis and taking the right action. And sometimes it's not going to work out, but that doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision.
That's absolutely right. And I- I'll take that a step further and say too that the best leaders, in my opinion, have this mindset of it's not win or lose, but it's win or learn. We're not going to be perfect. We as humans are not perfect. So there are going to be times that we make decisions that don't work out in the way that we thought they would. And that's really where the leadership comes in to say, okay, what can we learn from that so that we don't make that same mistake again? Or in this case, if you've had a 70% success ratio of running that play, then maybe there is not a whole lot to learn there. And it was just the right call at the right moment. Um, but having that win or learn mentality, I think sets certain leaders apart from others because it just helps you to make better decisions going forward.
Yeah, and you know what? And by being consistent and consistently making the right decisions and learning from the challenges, that leader is going to eventually excel, right? Like in
Yes,
time, even with these setbacks, perhaps in part because of the setbacks, that's going to allow them to rise above the crop instead of being just the lucky, have the beginner's luck, or maybe the good fortune of making a poor decision that had a good outcome, right? The leader that's making the intelligent decisions is going to have some bad outcomes, but at the end of the day, there are going to be a lot more positive outcomes than negative outcomes.
that's right. And one of the things that I'll talk to some of my clients about, and it could be someone who's been a high performer and they get their first executive role and they're looking to really just ramp it up. And I want to talk to them about a mindset of progress over perfection, right? You're not going to be perfect stepping into that role in the first month or the first 6 months, but it takes consistency, right? It takes being 1% better every day as opposed to trying to be 100% better in your first week. Like that's a recipe for disaster. Um, and I also like to use the analogy with Michael Jordan, right? I'll ask people, and people don't realize, I'll say, would you agree that Michael Jordan was one of the best basketball players of all time? Most people say yes. And I'll say, do you know what his shot percentage was? Most people don't know that off the top of their head, but Michael Jordan, he had a shot percentage of roughly 52%. So that means that only one out of every two shots that he made went into the basket. But it was consistency. It was getting a little better every single day to make up that shot percentage. And that's people want the immediate gratification, and that's something that's a learned behavior, right? To just like, all right, be better today, better than I was yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, I love that snippet of progress versus perfection. It makes me think of two things, right? There's Seth Godin has this saying of ship, right? Just ship, right?
Yep.
Like, get it out, and we'll smooth it over and work out the kinks later, but you got to get the product out. And then secondly, I think of Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast will tell, he consistently talks about it doesn't have to be perfect. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be 100 times better to get 100 times the traffic. It only has to be 10% better. 10% better, get 100 times the results. And not surprisingly, the amazing entrepreneur is a billionaire
Right.
before the age of 30.
Yeah. It's something that, you and I went to school with people who were, the traditional type A, and they have that need to be perfect mentality. And as I've connected with some of our classmates over the years, it's interesting to see how that has shifted to the progress mentality. When you're in your early 20s and you get into this school that's full of high performers, you want to be perfect, but then you kind of mature and you learn how life really happens.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's just a reflection upon our culture and our educational system, right? There's this focus or perceived importance of perfection and being number one. But how often is it that we see that some of the most successful people may not have been the valedictorian, or maybe didn't even graduate, right?
Mhm.
Like there are a lot of successful people I know who dropped out or didn't go to school, or went to a school that maybe doesn't have the same notoriety as some other schools, but they're just an amazing thinker. They're an amazing leader. They have other skills that allow them to rise to the top.
Exactly. Speaking of skills, what would you say is, if a young person came to you right now, and someone who works for you maybe, and said, I want to be a leader, I want to be in your seat, you know, that's my goal in my career. What would you say is the most important skill for a leader to develop and really hone?
Yeah, Chris, I don't know if I'm going to answer a little bit differently
Okay.
than the way you asked. I would encourage the young man or woman to really just develop themselves, right? Become a receptacle of information, and uh, a student of worldliness, and uh, so that they are really well rounded in all aspects of the world,
Mhm.
right? Because there are so many skills, and and people can excel in with one skill or perhaps a couple skills, but everyone is different, right? So maybe depending on the young man or woman, I would perhaps steer them into the direction where I saw their passion and their greatness. But my what I've learned is that people, as much as society might disagree, people change very dramatically over time.
Sure.
And a person, even myself, if I look at myself 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even a year ago, my passions might be similar, but I bet there's some differences in them. My skills, the my experiences,
Mhm.
right, and all the interactions with people in the world. So I would encourage young leaders to just get out there, speak with a lot of people, try a million things, fail often and fast, and
Mhm.
then figure out where their affinities are and where their passions lie, and then just continually tweak it, right? It's like when Da Vinci carved the David, and the Pope asked him, "Well, how did you do this?" And he said, "Oh, it's very simple. I just chipped away at everything that wasn't David."
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And I think it's the same. My opinion is the same with all of us, right? To the extent that I'm consistently chipping away at my imperfections and honing my, uh, my the greater aspects of myself, I'm consistently evolving to become a better and better leader and father and person in my household, the community, and the world.
That's I really like that answer because yes, there are skills that are necessary to lead people, but knowing yourself and finding yourself, I think really helps you to become authentic and genuine and it does shape your future. I mean, I've known people who have had the desire to want to lead people and then find themselves and like, you know what? I really don't necessarily want to lead people. I just want to be an individual contributor. And that's where my heart is. I don't want the headaches of leadership. And, but if they were just forced down a cattle chute, for lack of a better word, they wouldn't have been happy. They wouldn't have had the same kind of zest for life if they didn't take that time to find themselves. So I think that that's fantastic advice.
Yeah, and just to continue it for another minute, I think it's a travesty that when when uh, when leaders and teachers and parents, you know, force or push students to decide, what do you want to do? How is someone going to know what they want to do 20, 30, 40 years from now when they don't even know who they are yet?
Right.
And their personality and their identity are shifting. And as they
Mhm.
get more experiences and interactions in life, they're realizing, I like this, I don't like this, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this. Right. So that's why, maybe just to add color to how I answered before, I think there's great value in people really exploring and then consistently reevaluating, saying, all right, just because I decided I wanted to go to med school 5 or 10 years ago, maybe I don't want to go to med school anymore, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, what I see, and maybe this is why a lot of people are not satisfied with their careers and their lives, is there's this sunk cost fallacy. Hey, I put 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, X amount of dollars studying for this, working in this, moving up the ladder. How could I change? And
Yeah.
I say, how could you not change? Right? It's like, if there's something else out there that's calling you, all those sunk costs are sunk costs. We shouldn't use them as an anchor to keep us stuck in an area that we don't want to be in, and also deprive the world and our families and our communities of the greatness that's being restrained by sticking it into something, or a corporation, or a career, or whatever it is, that isn't the right fit. And maybe it was the right fit, but it's not anymore. Then yeah, cut our losses and move on.
Yeah. No, I think there's so much to be said about that. And like as I reflect back on my own career, I mean, up until I was 31, I was doing entrepreneurial stuff. And then from the time I was 31 until I was like 44, I was more in the corporate world. I was leading turnarounds. And after 2018 up until present day, I really honed in on that passion of leadership. And I'd say that the past 5 years of my career have been the most satisfying, the most fulfilling. I could I have continued to lead turnarounds? I absolutely could have. But it really wasn't where my heart was. And that making that decision, at 44 years old with a family and like, what I want to do next is this, not that. Um, I think in my case, it's worked out awesome. I've had the best past 5 years that I can think of. But it would have been very easy to just say, okay, what's the next turnaround that I'm going to go do?
Yeah, and congratulations for you to have the insight and then the courage to see that and then made the decision to decisively say, I'm not doing turnarounds anymore. I'm going this way. And here we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Um, One of the best decisions that I've made for sure. Um, so let's let's wrap it up with one final question. Do you have a leadership philosophy that kind of touches every part of your life? You kind of touched on it early on about, it's about how you show up at work, in the community, for your family, but do you have a philosophy that really guides you as a leader?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it comes down to two words, or I guess three words: personal growth and empowerment, right? Like, what I find one of the keys to successful leadership is empowering the people who we're leading to take initiative, to learn from their challenges, and to be okay uh, with the complexities of what's going on in their lives and their professions and their roles, right? And if I, as a leader, don't don't trust my people, and when I say, if I weren't to empower them, I think that that's a result of me not trusting them, right? If I trust my people and I want to see them grow, how can I not give them the latitude and the flexibility to make decisions, to test things out, and to grow? Otherwise, I'm restraining them, I'm restricting them. Their level of satisfaction is going to be curtailed, as opposed to when they have my support and they know that if they have a challenge or they made a mistake, that they could come to me and we could figure out a solution. They're not going to hide it from me.
Right.
They're not going to hide it from their peers. Instead, they're going to, there'll be a path of maybe discomfort, but
Hmm.
there'll be a respectable opportunity for us to come together and find a solution and take that progress from the challenge to become better. So, and then relatedly, the personal growth, right? Like, to the extent that I'm getting better in A, B, and C areas of my life, I'm getting better in A, B, and C areas of all aspects of my life. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity in reading and listening to great content and trying things, especially things that maybe we haven't done before, or pushing ourselves beyond our perceived limits, right? That personal growth is, if we look up amongst the the most successful people, I think success is a term that gets thrown around a lot cavalierly,
Hmm.
but we'll use it just for brevity now. I think there's a richness that life opens up in life when people consistently push themselves, grow, ask questions, learn new skills, right? So, that would be my answer: empower and personal growth.
I you know I love that because our job as leaders, in my opinion, is to help others be the best that they can be. Right? It's we provide guidance, we provide opportunity. So empowering others and having that as part of your leadership philosophy is right on in my book, because if you never let go of anything, then you're not providing the opportunity for people to grow and be their best selves. So, empowering others and personal development, two things that are super high on my list as well.
Yeah, my football coach in high school, I remember he told me, he said, Germano, if I'm not yelling at you, that means you're done as a player. And it's so true, right? Like the
Hmm.
people who we care about are the people who we often push the most, right? And it's with love, right?
Right.
And then secondly, I remember a mentor and friend of mine told me, jump and the parachute will open, right? But if I don't take those chances, then I'm not gonna have those opportunities, right? What did Gretzky say?
You miss every.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, same thing with Jordan, right? He missed 48% of the shots that he took, but the 52% that went in made him amongst the greatest of all time.
Exactly. Man, Michael, this has been an awesome conversation. I'm so happy that we were able to put this together and just get your views on leadership and get some nuggets that we can share with other people that are looking to grow their own ability to lead. Any parting thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge you, Chris, for bringing this out to the world. I think sharing these nuggets from a host of professionals and leaders throughout the world is something that we can all benefit from. So, I applaud you for bringing this out to the world, and I'm grateful that you put me in such great company to be one of those people who you're uh, showcasing and looking for nuggets from. So I appreciate it. I'm grateful for your friendship and for inviting me this afternoon.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And everybody, if you have gotten some nuggets of information, some wisdom from this conversation, which I know you have, please like this episode, share this episode with other people. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you're always getting those fresh ideas about how to make your leadership better and becoming a high impact leader. I'll see you on the next time.